I would just work out like a maniac on whatever I thought my weaknesses were. And back then it was my bicep. It was like, guys would, the knock against me in the lightweight class was I was crafty and technical, but if you turned me into a hook right here, you could pull through my arm. So I just decided, no, my bicep is going to be the strongest fucking bicep there is. And if you want to go there at your own peril, because this is where your hook goes to die, was the way that I thought about it. And it was like, it taught me the process of making my biceps stronger from where I was, as weak as I was. It taught me that your weaknesses can become your strength. And what I saw over the years was, the different things that I had that were weaknesses in arm wrestling, I'd bring them up, and maybe something else would lag behind, and then I'd bring that up. And then it was like, well, yeah, you can do that in other aspects of your life too, as long as you can figure out how to measure things, and as long as you have enough humility to look at yourself and say, this is a blind spot of mine. I got to work on this.
Now with you kind of bringing that up, where people are maybe commenting and saying, they're just going to try to pull through your arm and your bicep might be weak, right? Mm-hmm. From a standpoint of some of your videos, you've pulled off probably some of the best bicep lifts, bicep curls that I've ever seen. Is there a few that kind of stand out? I mean, I've seen you, I don't want to be wrong when I say this, but I mean, I've seen you with like a full length Olympic barbell, and I want to say 55-pound plates on.
Yeah.
And you've
done the barbell.
You've done a one-arm preacher curl.
And that barbell only weighed 42 though. It wasn't like a 45-pound barbell. Just in the interest of, so it was 152, but
it's still 152-pound single arm curl with the balance of a barbell, right?
And it's squirrely. I don't know if you ever saw my fail on that. I failed pretty bad on that.
I might have seen it, but But I mean, stuff like that, and then you've curled, extremely heavy dumbbells. Like preacher curl dumbbells that, stuff that would probably rip my arm off. So I've always.
But it took time.
Oh yeah,
it took time. It was like when this would have been 97 or 98. I went to a Play It Again Sports in Milford, Connecticut, and they had hex dumbbells for like 40 cents a pound. So I bought the ones I could bring home. They had a 50, they had a 65, they had a 70, a 75, an 80, a 90, and a 100 and a 120. And I had those hex dumbbells for a number of years. I actually kept them all the way up until the pandemic. I was selling weights during the pandemic for like 50 cents a pound because people were ripping other people off. But I bought those dumbbells, and I set a goal that I was going to curl that 120-pound dumbbell eventually, right? So I go home, and I can't, at the time, it's funny, I was let's see, this was 90, would have been 97 or 98, because I was actually living in my dad's basement, and he had all these old weights. It was pig iron, like 1-inch weights and stuff. And he had some dumbbell handles. But I went down there and I tried to curl the 50 and I couldn't do it. And I was already arm wrestling at that point.
Okay. I was going to ask was the curl thing kind of a goal prior to arm wrestling, or did the arm wrestling kind of spark that and then they kind of just played off each other?
It took me 2 years of arm wrestling to finally enter an arm wrestling tournament. And all these weird things happened that led to that, which I'll get into. But I couldn't curl the 50. So what I did was I basically made a smaller bell, and then I took a percentage of that and I gradually microloaded it. Mm-hmm. And, it wasn't until 2012, the week of 2 weeks before the Unified Nationals, the Unified Nationals in Mobile, 2011. 2 weeks before the Unified Nationals in Mobile, that I was actually able to curl that 120, and that 120 scaled out at 123. And there was a time when I did 3 sets of 6 with it, full range. So I started in this space where my bicep was so unbelievably weak that it was getting exploited. And, I was in many ways, I remember back then, nobody minced words. I was in some ways a laughing stock. It was like, James, if he doesn't top roll you, is not going to beat you. If you turn him in, His arm folds over like a wet dish rag, somebody said one time. And
Okay.
I remembered that. I remembered that.
Still to this
Because
day.
I arm wrestled that same guy in Atlantic City in 2008,
Mhm.
and I purposefully turned him into a hook. And I didn't embarrass him, but I purposefully turned him into a hook and waited for him to look at me, made eye contact, and pulled right through him in a hook.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, yeah, I remember. You were right. You were right, but things change.
Yeah.